Hey guys, I just wanted to show you how to import a quiz into Canvas, or not necessarily import, but more or less develop a quiz in Canvas. I like the quiz feature because it automatically grades the quiz for me. I don't have to grade individually. It does it for me and it automatically gives me a grade printout of it at the end. The only thing I don't like about the Canvas feature is it is a little cumbersome to upload quizzes into Canvas, but let's just show you how to do that. I'm actually going to go into the modules, not the quiz tab, but the modules, because I like to develop my stuff that way. So I've already developed a few quizzes into Canvas, but if you are looking to develop a brand new quiz, you go to whatever module you're using and you just hit the plus button. And then you can decide what you want as far as the drop-down menu. But in this case, of course, like we said, we're going to develop a quiz. So I go into quiz, and these are some of the quizzes that I've already developed here. So if you ever have a question on the quiz, feel free to ask me. I'd be happy to show you how to do that. So I'm going to go into one that I've started to develop, but I haven't published it yet. This is for Macbeth. So if I go down here, actually I have published it, but I'm going to unpublish it because of course there's only 3 questions on there. So if I go in, I'll show you how to set it up. If I go into edit, I'm going to label it whatever the title is. And I always put in the quiz instructions their passcode to get into the lockdown browser. Some teachers change theirs. I kind of keep mine the same for each of my class periods. I just edit my times that it's available to the students. And for me, that helps in terms of people that are absent. I just have to assign that to that particular student that is absent, and I don't have to mess with lockdown browser codes. I keep it the same. So the quiz, of course, is going to be a graded quiz, and I want it as summative, so I add that. And I want to sync it to the student information system. That, of course, would be the Home Access Center, so I check that. I always say shuffle answers because then on A on one student's screen might be C on another student's screen, and that definitely discourages students from copying each other. I always set it at 48 minutes. That's a class period, and I don't mess with this allow multiple attempts unless I want them to redo something, which most of the time, if it's an assessment, you get one shot at it. I always let them see their quiz responses at the end, and some teachers like to lock those quiz responses so they don't share answers with other students later on in the day. Most kids don't really take interest in that too much because once the class period is over, that will hide the answers. So if I want to hide the answers here, I would certainly set whatever time that is. So I don't really mess with it, but that is an option if that is something that you were interested in. Okay, I always hit show one question at a time, and I leave lock question after answering blank because then the students are allowed to go back before they submit their quiz and change answers if they decide to revise something. But I always say show one question at a time because that also discourages students from cheating off of each other, because if one student ahead of them is moving on a quiz, it's not as easy to look back and forth at different questions. Quiz restrictions, yes, I want an access code. This makes me require the lockdown browser, and I put that lockdown password again here. I don't mess with the IP address. I leave that blank. So under here, this is the important part, who gets this quiz. So of course you would add whatever class period that is. This is particular period 1. This is my English 4 class. I set the due date. That's the end of the period. If you want it to sync with the Home Access Center, you have to list a due date, or else it will not transfer into the Home Access Center. So I put the due date at the end of the period, and then of course it is available from 7:30 to 8:21. I give that available date because of the fact that I don't want students, if I publish the quiz the night before, I don't want students to be able to see the quiz before class starts. So I can publish it, but they won't be able to see it until 7:30. They won't be able to open it up. They can see that it is assigned to them, but they won't be able to see the access to the quiz until that 7:30 due date, or the 7:30 access date. So I've already started to develop a couple questions in here. So this is question number 1. This is just a multiple choice question. So I go in here and I chose multiple choice, but you can see that you can do true, false, fill in the blank, multiple blanks, multiple answers, drop downs, matching, numerical answers, formula questions. Those are kind of math related. Essay questions I have used, although the computer does not grade the essay questions. You have to manually grade those. So it will mark it wrong, and I've always told students just be patient as far as me grading those. You have to manually grade those essay questions. If I want them to upload a file, I would choose that, although if you're planning on using the Lockdown browser, that access, that ability to do that is enabled because they are locked into that screen. And I haven't messed with this text question. I'm not quite sure what that one is, but I kind of stick to the general ones, you know, multiple choice, fill in the blank, true, false, matching. Those are ones that I definitely choose. Okay, so I set whatever point I want. So this is, of course, first worth 1 point. So I type my question in, and then I choose what my correct answer is. Now, if you choose to shuffle answers, you know, this won't always show up as the first choice. It might show up down here as like option C. But if you want it to be that particular one, you would put it up there. But it automatically will shuffle those. So if I want to change it, just in case I forgot to mark the right answer, it's very easy. You just switch back and forth between the two. So that is that. If I want to add more answers, just click on that. So I update my question. So this one I also started to develop. This is a matching one. I made it 2 points because there's 2 matching questions. So match the correct description of the correct characters. So I always put the shortest portion over here on the right hand side because when the students go to take the quiz, it comes up as a drop down menu. It's easier to look at it this way instead of just, you know, looking at a description, trying to figure out where that description ends. So I always put the answers on the right hand side. So, of course, I update that question. So then if I want to save it, of course, I would hit save. So we're just going to pretend that I've published this and I'm ready to go. Yeah, I know I need to assign it to periods 2 and 7. So I just hit continue. So let's go and look to see what this looks like from the student's perspective. So I go to preview. So this is what it looks like. Lady Macbeth plans to blame Duncan's murder on Malcolm, Banquo, Duncan's guards, the witches. Now, if you remember when I was developing this question, Duncan's guard was option A, so that's up here. And notice I picked shuffle choices. So that'll be different on each student's screen. So option A might be option D on somebody else's screen. So of course, I can double check my answers. I'm going to click Duncan's guard here. Now, if you notice here, there's a time running, how many seconds and how many minutes and seconds they have left, and I can hide that too if I want. So now let's go to the next question. I'll show you what that matching looks like, as I said, with the drop-down menu. So go up here, kills Duncan to gain power of the throne. So, of course, those are my choices there. That's the matching. The answer, of course, is Macbeth. And then I go over here, becomes highly suspicious of Macbeth by Act 3. I would choose, of course, Macduff. So when I'm ready, if I want to double check that I've hit the right answers, I can do that and submit quiz, and it'll come up and it'll show you which questions you got right and which questions you got wrong. So if I want to look at that, I can go back through and look. See, it tells you your correct answers, tells me how long it took me to take the quiz, and of course, correct answers down there. Now, if it was incorrect, of course, it would come up as red and say incorrect. So that is that. So that's how you develop a quiz One thing I would also suggest, remember, once you are ready to publish this quiz and you're ready to roll it out, you want to make sure you remember the Lockdown browser to add to it. So go to Lockdown browser. It takes a few seconds for it to load. And I scroll down and find my quiz. So I go to Modify Settings. And I do want the Respondus Lockdown browser for this exam, so I choose that choice. And remember, I had already set the Lockdown browser code here, and I don't really mess too much with the advanced settings. I would kind of leave that alone. I would not mess with that, so just kind of leave that alone there. And then I would hit Save and Close.